साईं के संग अकथ कहानी प्रेम की कछु कही ना जाए, गूंगे केरी सरकरा बैठी मुस्काए. That's what says Kabir Sahib. Kabir says अकथ कहानी प्रेम की कहानी अकथ है. The story of love cannot be expressed in words. कछु कही ना जाए. अकथ कहानी प्रेम की कछु कही ना जाए, गूंगे केरी सरकरा बैठी मुस्काए. Just like the dumb, Gunga is the dumb person, when he's sucking on the sugar candy, he cannot express the sweetness of the sugar candy. He can just enjoy that, and he smiles. The maximum expression that a man who is dumb cannot speak, he can smile, and that smile shows how sweet that sugar candy is. And therefore, we human beings, we try to express the experiences of God through our words, through our limited words. And words are not sufficient. As Kabir says, words are not sufficient to express the sweetness of the divine. Words actually fall short. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. So words are not enough. And we experience the divine. Of course, there are two parts to it. One is the external experience of the divine, and the other part is the most important, that Swami wants all of us to do, is to internalize all those experiences, to internalize. We have the Prashantinilayam outside, but that Prashantinilayam Swami wants inside each of our hearts. That internalization is what all of us are striving for. We are all pilgrims on the same path, trying in our different ways to internalize what he has said. And he has given so many discourses. And he says, Swami says that even if you follow just one of my sayings, that's enough. That is going to sanctify your whole life. And before I talk about certain experiences, I would like to focus on the most important thing, that the most important message of Swami to whole of humanity, and that that is love all, serve all. It is very easy to say that, love all and serve all. But for 85 years, Swami has done that. Swami has been an example of loving all and serving all. That too tirelessly. He has been doing it for 85 years. Therefore, it will be my endeavor in the few minutes given to me to just try to have a look at the various points of my life where Swami has stepped in and given directions. And of course, the whole story, I can say, instead of calling it my story, the whole story of our family goes back to the year 1979. And 1979 was the year when my father, who was in the defense services, he retired from the defense services, he had been posted to a small town, Payanur in Kerala. And that is where the whole journey begins. And my father, being in the defense services, we were devotees of Lord Shiva and Parvati, and we had not known of Satya Sai Baba. We did not know him before coming to Kerala. And while at Payanur, my mother, she began to work in a college there, in a local college there. Of course, she did not know Malayalam, so it was predominantly a college where all spoke English. So she could manage to be there. She was working in the college. And there was another teacher there, that is, I call her Malti Auntie. And she was my mother's colleague in that college. And she was Swami's devotee. And she spoke to my mother in the free time in the staff room. She asked my mother, "Do you know Satya Sai Baba?" My mother said, No, I do not know him. And Malti Auntie told my mother, "See, you should go to Puttaparthi and visit Satya Sai Baba. You know that. Satya Sai Baba is God." Malti Auntie told my mother, "Satya Sai Baba is God." My mother said, "See, we know only of Lord Shiva as God. We know of Lord Krishna as God. I do not believe Satya Sai Baba. He must be some magician." So Malti Auntie told my mother, No, you have to go to Puttaparthi. You have to experience Satya Sai Baba. Okay. So my mother was quite reluctant. She was not taking any interest. And then Malti Auntie gave my mother a book, that famous book that has transformed the lives of millions of people, Sai Baba, Man of Miracles, by Howard Moffat. So that's the book Malti Auntie gave to my mother. So my mother read that book, and she read it, she read it quite thoroughly, and she was impressed. And then the next thing is, before that, what happens is, my mother comes back home and she speaks to father. She says, she gives the book to father. Father also reads it. Both of them are impressed, but they cannot believe that Satya Sai Baba is God. So both of them naturally have their own queries and their own ways of testing. So my father, I recall that years ago, his elder brother had given him a small packet to keep in his wallet. He says, keep this packet in your wallet, and this packet, this is vibhuti. This will ward away all evil, and this will protect you in times of danger. Keep that vibhuti in your wallet. So my father had kept that vibhuti packet, and then when he went back and checked for the same vibhuti packet given years ago, he did not find it. That packet was missing. And then, of course, he forgot about it. And then, in his mind, in his inner mind, he was just, throwing out like a challenge. He says, see, Baba, if you are God, I want the Vibhuti packet replaced this evening itself. So if you are God, that you have to send me that Vibhuti packet this evening itself. So that is the challenge he threw out to Swami. And something else was happening there at the college when my mother went to college. After the college, Malti auntie took my mother to the house of a very old devotee of Swami, Malu Amma, and my mother went there to the devotee's house, and to her amazement, you see the puja room of Malu Amma was so fragrant, and the reason was that all the photographs of Swami were covered with vibhuti. Vibhuti mostly in the shape of garlands on Swami's photograph, on almost all the photographs. Not only vibhuti, but nectar flowing from many of the photographs. And then vibhuti, that welled up on those photographs as mounds. Okay, they fell, and below that she had kept white paper. All that vibhuti would collect on the white paper, and then she would, make small packets of vibhuti and keep them. And when devotees came, she would distribute those packets of vibhuti. And my mother's experience was when she entered that puja room of Malu Amma. I mean, it was totally a different world for her. It was as if she was transported to heaven itself. I mean, that experience she still recalls. It was really amazing. And then, as would happen, they attended the bhajan there, both Malti auntie and my mother, and then they prostrated themselves before Swami's photographs. And then, they not only had the Vibhuti Prasadam there, but small packets of Vibhuti were given to all the devotees, particularly the Vibhuti that fell from the photographs. Everybody asked for that. So my mother also took 2 small packets of Vibhuti. And then went back home. And when mother returned, she told her experience to father. She said, see, such a wonderful place and such a devotee. You see, in her puja room, so much of vibhuti, see, manifests in all the photographs. And you see, and she has been kind enough to give me also 2 packets of vibhuti. So, and then my father remembered, you see, how in the morning he had told Swami, see, if you are able to get me just a packet of vibhuti by the evening, I will believe that you are God. And then father took that packet. He was really overwhelmed with joy. And he took 1 packet from my mother and put it in his wallet. And see, that was the first sign that Swami gave. Swami gave him the answer immediately. Okay. So that was the first thing. And then, of course, subsequently, in the days to follow, what happens is my father gets a dream, and in the dream, Swami is appeared in a white robe, and Swami is holding my father's right palm, and examining the palm just like a palmist would do. Swami in his white robe, and holding my father's right hand and examining his palm like a palmist would do, and my father telling him all his worries, all his problems, all his professional worries, professional concerns, family problems, this and that. And one of those issues that was troubling father was that he had been in the emergency commission of the army, and then after the period was over, he was supposed to uh, relinquish that post, and he was supposed to join elsewhere, and and the prospect of losing the job was very high, and he would be left jobless after the emergency commission tenure was over. So therefore, one of these problems was there. And then in dream, Swami had told him, don't worry your job, I will take care of your job. Don't worry at all. And as happens with Swami, when he promises, he does it immediately. The very next day after the dream, see, he got a letter from the government saying that you have been appointed, you have been transferred to the NCC, National Cadet Corps. He doesn't lose his job. He gets a job. He was a lieutenant colonel in the army, and he gets transferred to the National Cadet Corps, NCC. Okay. Just the next day. Okay. Swami is immediately fulfilled just after the dream. So that's what Swami says. See, when I come in dream, it doesn't mean that it's a dream. When Swami comes in dream, it is just like he has actually come there. Okay. So that happens. And the other worry was, the second worry was, you see, since we had been transferred to Payanur, a small town in Kerala, the studies of his two children, that is myself and my younger brother, would suffer because in Payanur we didn't have English medium schools and we didn't know Malayalam. We were from the north, and that was a big worry. So now what happens is there is a advertisement. Yes, one more thing. After my mother again goes back to Malti Auntie, and then Malti Auntie says, see, there is a magazine called Sanatan Sarthi. So the Sanatan Sarthi is, she gives it to my mother, and in the Sanatan Sarthi is an advertisement. Speaking about the admission to primary school, and yes, the admission to primary school. Okay. Primary school had opened at that time in 1980. Yes, 80, yes. 1980, the primary school was inaugurated. Sri Satsai Primary School at Prashantinilayam. And see, my father's worry was the two children need to be put to school, particularly the younger son, because he had, he had to be put to first standard. Okay. And that was troubling father. So what happens now is, now my mother sees the advertisement and tells the father that why don't we apply to primary school for our younger son in the first standard. The father says, how is it possible that thousands and thousands of applications will be there? How do you think that our children will be selected, particularly a younger son for the first standard? My mother said, no, why don't we apply? See, Swami has solved all these problems till now. He will solve this problem also. So after father didn't have leave, so mother, she took both of us, and along with some Sai devotees, we went to Prashantinilayam. Okay. And then as you see, Swami had planned, my younger brother got admitted to the first standard. And then later on, in 81, I also got admission into the 7th standard in the Ishwaram High School in Prashantinilayam. And even before that, just before that, before my younger brother's admission, we had, and in 79 itself, we had been to Prashantinilayam for the first time. And my father was wondering that how come that I have seen in almost all the photographs Swami in an orange robe or in a red robe, and we've never seen Swami wearing a white robe. So that year, when we visited Prashantilayam in Dashara time, it was in Dashara, I think, 79. So we saw Swami for the first time in the Purnachandra auditorium. And that time in the auditorium, Swami was wearing a white robe. And Father, Father was, white robe plus, once again, in the auditorium, Father throws out one more challenge to Swami, even in the Purnachandra auditorium where there are thousands of devotees assembled. He throws out another challenge to Swami. You know what that challenge is? He says, see, I am one of those thousands of devotees, but I want you to look at me, only me. And then, you see, Swami's ways are amazing. And Swami comes on the stage wearing a white robe, and Father, he's thrown out the challenge. Swami, you should only look at me. Okay. Then Swami, see that is what is divine, that is what is God. He throws such a glance at Father, it pierces Father's eyes. It gets into his heart. And then Father is all tears. He starts to weep, He starts shedding tears, profuse tears. Because that glance of Swami, such a piercing glance, met Father's eyes and pierced him, And then Father knew that. I mean, that was, I think, the last test that he had put to Swami, and that's how we see Swami won his heart. And then of course, the story unfolds that the youngest brother got admission, I got admission in the 7th standard. And then, of course, the story continues that my brother, he passed out from Vrindavan in the year 1995 after completing his BSc from Vrindavan, from 1st standard till BSc. And then I completed my master's in English from Prashantilayam in the year 1992. And then I waited for Swami's command. Then at that time there was a vacancy in our higher secondary school. Then at that time Habbu sir was our principal in the higher secondary school. So we asked Swami, one of our students is there, he wants to teach in our higher secondary school. Swami listened to all those things, but then Swami somehow did not listen to this. And then I waited for a few months because I badly wanted to work, at Prashantilayam after having completed my MA. But Swami had his own plans for me. So he wanted me, and at that time I also tried to see if I could get an admission into PhD, because at that time PhD program in English was also not being offered at our institute at that time in the year 1992, particularly for English. So therefore, I thought Swami has different plans for me. So I went out, and then I spent the time at my home in Aligarh in Western UP with my parents. That's where father settled after retiring from Bhopal. He got a house constructed at Aligarh and settled at Aligarh, and there I started to work at a private college, and also registered for PhD in 94 at the Agra University. in DS College, Aligarh. And I was pursuing my PhD and also teaching there. And then after getting my PhD in 98, I went ahead and then applied to various colleges, and incidentally I got a job at VIET, Vishweshwara Institute of Engineering and Technology at Dadri in the suburbs of Delhi. And then I worked there at VIET for 4 years, 2000 to 2004. And then Swami has his own ways of bringing us back. Swami knew our desire. Particularly, my mother was very, very keen on my, serving Swami in his institution. So therefore, my mother told me that, okay, you're working outside, that's fine, but why don't you work at Swami's institute? That'll be a great thing. So then she said, put a letter to Swami, write a letter to Swami, put it in puja room. I wrote a letter to Swami, put it in our puja room at Aligarh, and then what happens is, Swami, he acts immediately. The very next day, you will not believe it, the very next day, I got a letter from one of my friends who had been studying, doing MA at Prashantinilayam. He writes to me that, Vivek, look here, there is a vacancy for the post of lecturer in English at our university. And the registrar has informed me, Vivek, would you be interested in teaching English at our institute there? So when I told to mother, she was really overjoyed. He said, Swami answers immediately. You wrote a letter yesterday, put it in puja room, and the very next day you got this offer from Swami himself. So, and then he had also given Registrar Sir's personal phone number. So I called to Registrar Sir, and he recognized me. He says, Vivek, are you really interested in joining our institute? I said, yes, sir, I'm interested in serving Swami. So he says, good, very good. And things happen. As Swami has already decided, things happen so quickly. He said, why don't we are going to arrange for interview in May 2004. So why don't you come for an interview? You are going to be interviewed. And then I went to Prashantinilayam, and there, as usual, the Vice Chancellor, Registrar, Controller, and all the panel of professors, all of them interviewed me. And just in an hour's time after that, I was also congratulated and given the appointment letter immediately. I mean, that's what happens when Swami wants you back, given an appointment letter. And then that evening I sat there in the veranda. And when Swami came out, our registrar sir told Swami, one of our own boys we have appointed as a lecturer for Vrindavan. Swami said, Manchidi, very good, very good. Then Swami came out. Then Swami said, Tisko, Padmanamaskaram, Tisko. So I took, Swami's blessings. And then I joined Vrindavan in June 2004. And then, that was Swami's master plan, grand plan. Since then, I've been working here. And it's, his love every day. Every day is a great experience. Living in Vrindavan or in Prashantinilayam, it's a great experience every day. Thank you so much.